presentation today. We recently upgraded all of our laptops in the district. So all of our teachers are officially on Windows 10. We have a few places here and there that are on Windows 7, but those are going to be going away shortly. So I just really wanted to show you everything that your new device can do. I've been using one of the same laptops that you all have, and I've run into a few things. I'm kind of like, I don't really like how that works, but I'm going to show you some settings that you can adjust to make these work to fit your needs. So I'm going to be turning this webcam off in just a second so you're not staring at the side of my face, but I'm going to be sharing my screen, and then this picture here is going to show you the different gestures that I'm using and some of the keyboard shortcuts along the way. So I'm just going to turn this one off here. And I want to share my screen to just show you a bunch of random things. And I apologize, these are not in any particular order. I have just been keeping a little sheet of notes of different things that I think are really helpful to know when you're using your Windows 10 machine. So the first thing that I think is super helpful is split screen. So let's pretend, I mean, I'm not signed in right now and I don't have a Progress Book account, but let's say you have Progress Book, and I know Progress Book will automatically pull the grades over from Google Classroom, but maybe for some reason you're pulling it out of one tool into another. Maybe your IXL is going to count toward a grade. You can use split screen on your laptop to move things back and forth. So I have all of these tabs open, and this is where the first keyboard shortcut comes in. If you use the Windows key, we're going to use this one a lot today. It's the flag down here in the bottom left corner, and then we're going to use directional arrows. So it's kind of hard to see, but this is the left arrow. If I hold the Windows key and the left arrow, it takes whatever window I have open. So my Google Classroom window just moved to the left. And if I do the Windows flag and to the right, I can flip it to the right side. Now what's really cool is you can even split your tabs apart. So let's say I have Google Classroom over here on the right. I can take my Progress Book and I'm just clicking and dragging, and I'm bringing it over here. So now that they are separate, I can use that Windows key and the left arrow, and now I have Progress Book over here and I have Google Classroom on this side, and they're completely independent of one another. You can even hover between the two windows. You see how that dark gray line kind of appears? You can change how much of your screen each one is taking up. Yay, KQW loves that feature. So this is super, super helpful. You can also do this on Chromebooks. So if you're a Chromebook user, I'll show you where you can find all of those keyboard shortcuts as well. I don't have slides to share with you, but I'll show you where a lot of these things can be found in our tech resources website a little later on. Okay, switching gears a little bit. Extracting files was another thing that was huge when we first got these laptops. So I'm just here in our File Explorer. It should be down here on your taskbar. So across the bottom here, they call this your taskbar. You have the clock, the weather, your Wi-Fi connection, all of that goes along the bottom. But you can also get to your documents if you open up the Windows menu here. Documents is going to be right under, so your name is here, Documents is right here. So that's another way you can click in there to get to this File Explorer. The coolest thing with Windows 10 is we no longer have to have a standalone tool to extract all of our files. It's built in. So here, I just went into my Google Drive and downloaded a really large file, and it automatically zipped it. So you guys have resources from all over the place. When you download them, sometimes they're coming as a zipped file. All you have to do is right-click on the file that you need to unzip and click Extract All. And when you click that, it's just going to ask you where you want to save it. Normally, I just let it save in my downloads, and then I like to unzip things, kind of see what's in there, keep what I like, get rid of what I don't like, and then the things that I like, I would move those into my documents. So I would just click Extract, and it's going to pop up another window when it's done extracting. So you'll notice that right here, it's zipped. You can see the little zipper icon, and then over here, it's unzipped. And if we just click on it, we've got all these different folders, and then the materials are inside of them. And then my suggestion would be, let's say this ends up being really good content that you think you're going to use. I want to close out of this unzipped window. So this is where it showed us the unzipped content. I'm back to my downloads here. I would just open up the unzipped file and then just drag it to your documents, things that you want to keep. I like to think of my downloads folder as kind of the junk drawer because there's so many things you download all the time. Updates, little files here and there. And I just like to be able to go through my downloads folder and delete everything at one time. So if it's something important, I save it to my documents. I know a lot of you like to keep things on your desktop, so you can, from your smartboard, you can go up and just click on it real quickly and open it. Wherever you like to save it, just I think keeping the downloads is kind of that space that it's stuff that you needed, but you only needed it for a short time, and that it can be cleaned up quickly is kind of nice. Have any of you unzipped things yet with your new laptops? It should be pretty easy to do. All right, the next thing, I'm thinking of you guys working with your kiddos in front of the classroom. You need to get to things very quickly. When we gave you your laptops, we didn't really put many things down here on the taskbar, and we didn't do much to customize your start menu right here. So you have two different places that you can customize your icons. I like to put a lot of things down here on my taskbar. It's just quicker for me than putting things here on your start menu. So let's say I use the calculator a lot. You can come in here and right click on this and you can pin it to the start. And if I do that, it's going to bring it over here on this side. So I'll just go ahead and pin it. It just kind of falls to the bottom. Or if you right click and hover over more, you can pin it to your taskbar. So now if that calculator is something you use over and over and over again, you can have it easily accessible down here in your taskbar. Another one, if you're at the high school, our Epson software to use your interactive projectors, you may want to pin that one to the bottom or to your taskbar. And then for our folks that have smart boards, I don't know if I have Smart Notebook on this computer. I don't. But if you wanted to, you could do the same thing with your Smart Notebook. I believe it's on your desktop, but you could also pin it down here to your taskbar. Now, I like to clean, I really haven't done much with this laptop. So I like to clean some of these things up. Like I don't use Office, so I'm going to unpin it from start. You can actually unpin as many things as you want. You can drag and drop. So if that calculator was more important, you can click and you can drag it up here to the top so that it's quicker for you to get to that. Screenshotting, that's another big one. Let me open up my Google Classroom here. This is a good way to kind of mash two tips together. So we had this window previously, we were using it for split screen. If you don't want it to be split screen anymore, you can always come over here and use your maximize button, but you can also grab the window. So you don't want to be clicking on any tab, like this is kind of just some blank space between the tabs and your menus up here. If you click, you kind of have the window to drag it wherever you want. If you push it to the top, did you see that little box that kind of jumps out to the whole screen? If you let go after it does that, it will make it full screen again. So now that we have this full screen, let's say I wanted to take a screenshot of something that was on my screen, and then you can either copy and paste it, you can save it to your pictures. In Windows, they call it the snipping tool now. It used to be snip and lock or snip and save, something like that. But there's a really nice keyboard shortcut. You go Windows key, Shift S for snipping tool. And you'll notice it gives you a couple of different options up here. The first one, you have the crosshairs, that's the one that I use most often. I just like to be conscious of what I'm screenshotting. I wouldn't want to screenshot like a tab that has an email subject line in it. So I might just come in here and I'm going to click and drag, and maybe I just want this little part of the screen. As soon as you let go, it gives you a little notification down here that says it's on your clipboard. So that means you can go somewhere and hit paste and it's going to put this picture in there. But if you click on it, it's going to open up your snipping tool and you can actually save this somewhere. Now you have a few different annotating and editing tools up here. They're pretty basic. It's not anything like Photoshop that's going to be earth shattering, but you know, if you wanted to show families like click here as best you can draw with your mouse, you could absolutely do something like that. And then you can always save it. And when you save it, it will default to your pictures. And I would highly recommend, I know on my desktop computer that I use on a daily basis, I have like screenshot 1, screenshot 2. I have a ton of screenshots. Name them something to make your life a little bit easier. So we'll just do, let me save it. And now I can, that picture is still on my clipboard. So if I'm in a Google slide, if I can open one up real quick, I can just come in here and paste, and that picture is still on the clipboard, but it's also saved. So if you want to go back and insert it again later on another project at a completely different time, you don't have to worry about it. As soon as you copy something new, so like let's say I go here and I just copy maybe this link up here. So I'm just going to use my keyboard shortcut to copy that. When I come back to paste, that overrode the picture that we had originally. So it's only on the clipboard until you copy something new and paste it. All right, any questions on those things so far? Because before we jump into some settings that you can customize. All right, one of my favorite things about Windows 10 is this search bar down here. I've been working with a lot of teachers, and the biggest thing they ask me about is that lock screen timeout. Like your screen goes to sleep too quickly and it may be in the middle of a lesson. Well, I know there's settings out there, but I can't remember what they're called. So if you just search for something you're trying to do, so I'm just going to search for lock screen, it will give you all kinds of potential options. Anything here, so this is settings, all of these things are different settings that it will take you to. It's also going to give you a web search, like if you were to go out to Google and type things in. I try not to go to those because that's kind of like that rabbit hole of trying to figure things out on your own. But any of these settings, it's just a real nice, quick way to get there. So I'm just going to go here to this first one that says lock screen settings. And it brings up our new Windows 10 settings menu. So if you were used to Windows 7, you had like a control panel, and this has replaced control panel. It does all of the same things, it just looks very different and everything's moved around. So I'm going to minimize my screen back here just so you can see. One way you can pull up your settings is to go down here and search for something. The other way is if you come down here to your start menu, you have the settings button. So when I click on that, I already had it open, so it didn't do anything. But once you're in your settings, if you would like to change the time that your computer goes to sleep, you just have to come in here to the lock screen choice and scroll down. So you'll see like the image that we put in there for your lock screen. And you're looking for this button that says Screen Timeout Settings. When you click on this, by default, I didn't change any of these things from the factory defaults. So if it's on battery, after 4 minutes, it will go to sleep. If you're using your computer for anything other than teaching, that's probably pretty good because it's meant to help save your battery life. While you're teaching, you probably want to turn this up to 1 or 2 hours. I will say I don't recommend setting it to never. That just means your screen's going to be on all the time, and that could potentially down the road cause damage to your screen. So I would say 1 or 2 hours is fine. Anytime you click on your screen, or even if you're working from your smartboard or your Epson interactive board in your classroom, any tap on the board counts as a touch on your screen. So that's keeping it awake. So I don't think there's really any need to set it for 3 or 4 hours at a time. I mean, when you're working in your classroom, you probably touch your computer once every hour or every 2 hours. So those would probably be the best choice. And I would also pick the same thing here. When it's plugged in, they give you a little bit more time just because typically when you're plugged in, battery power isn't as much of an issue. But I would change this one here to 1 to 2 hours so that it's not constantly going to sleep on you, so you can keep using it. Another thing that's pretty cool with Windows 10 is some of the features on the touchpad. And I will say this was one of my biggest beefs when I got this new laptop was it thought I was right clicking all the time if I tapped too far in the bottom right corner or if I tapped on the right hand side of my touchpad. So I'm going to actually close out of this settings window to show you another way to get into settings. So last time we just did a little search here. I'm going to go to my Windows menu and click settings again. And these are all of the big categories. And we're actually to update your or to change your touchpad, you're going to come in here to your devices because it's considered a type of mouse. So when you go in here, you really won't have to mess with too much of this stuff. Your printers that are in here, that's all pushed to you depending on your building and your classroom location. So if you work in multiple buildings, you have multiple printers. If you only work in one building, you'll have all the printers for that building. Your mouse, if you have a, like I have right here, a USB mouse that I plug into mine, you can change the speed that it scrolls and how fast it tracks back and forth. But most of you are using your touchpad. So on this screen here, you can also customize how quick, so cursor speed, this is how quick when I'm moving my finger back and forth, how fast it moves across the screen. If I speed that way up, I'm barely moving my finger at all, and it's flying all over my screen. I'm going to turn that back down a little bit. You can also adjust the sensitivity of your touchpad. So if you feel like you're barely tapping it and it's too sensitive for you, you could turn the sensitivity down to low. Or if you feel like you have to press too hard, you could turn it up to high or most sensitivity. So the higher the sensitivity, the lighter you have to click. The lower the sensitivity, the harder you have to click on your touchpad. These options down here, these check boxes, this is where you get to customize it to make it work for you. So I think most people are comfortable just tapping with one finger. That's going to work just like a click. A lot of you are used to your student Chromebooks where 2 fingers is a right click. So if I use 2 fingers, I'm just going to go in the background out here. That gives me my right click options. I honestly don't use this next one, tap twice to drag and multi-select. If I have to drag and drop something, let's say, I'm just going to make this window just a little bit smaller to show you here. If I want to drag this window, if you're watching where my keys are, I usually use one finger to press down and the other finger to kind of drive it. I've also seen some of our students, that's really hard for them to have the same hand doing 2 different things. I'm just kind of lazy. So they'll use one finger to click and the other one to drag. I think that's more comfortable for a lot of people, but you can, honestly, I don't even know that I could demonstrate that properly for you right now, but it's an option. The fourth one is the one that I turned off. So I mentioned that I felt like it was constantly thinking I was right clicking because I'm so used to using 2 fingers for the right click instead of just one. So I actually chose to turn that off. It doesn't use this lower right corner at all as a right click. If I were to turn that on and I come over here and I'm still just using a 1 finger tap, I'm in the bottom corner. Watch, it's not going to do it. So it thinks that it's a right click. I just wanted to turn that off because I just kept getting too many right click menus. Your scrolling is pretty intuitive. You just go up and down. I compared this to my Mac because a lot of places it used to be the opposite. But now that everybody is on like a simple touchpad without the 2 buttons below, I think they all scroll the same direction. If you have a computer somewhere else and your touchpad scrolls the other direction and this one drives you crazy, you can switch it. They used to call it Australian scrolling, I think. Pinch to zoom is really cool. Let me take you over to, I'm just going to take you to our district website because it's real easy to see. When you do pinch to zoom, you literally, just like you would do on an iPad or a touchscreen phone, if you take your fingers like this, you go out, it zooms in, you pull them back together, it zooms out. So your touchpad can do all of that. If you get a little zoom crazy, honestly, this is one of the things I get from classrooms. Teachers will call me and be like, my kids, their computer is like super magnified and I can't get it back to normal. A easy shortcut to get your zoom back to normal, and this works on Chromebooks and on Windows 10. If you use the Control key and the number 0, so if I press Control 0, it sets your view back to 100%. Now you can also zoom in and out with a keyboard shortcut. If the pinch zoom is not your thing, you can do Control plus to zoom in on the keyboard, and then Control minus to zoom back out. And sometimes it is nice. You'd be like, why would I want to make it smaller? If you're trying to capture a screenshot and you've got, like, let's say I want to show our whole district webpage, I'm like, oh, I want to see this whole thing. I'm just missing the schools here at the bottom. You can zoom out to get your screenshot and then zoom back in to see the details afterward. So pinch to zoom, or you can use the Control minus, Control plus. That's going to be your in and out. But then you can also use Control 0 to reset it if you've been playing around a little bit. And then gestures. This is really cool, and I don't know that we use these very often. I want to split a couple of my windows apart just so it looks like I've been like really teaching all day. Maybe you have Smart Notebook open, you've got your email, you're working on some settings. If you take 3 fingers, it actually works with 3 or 4 fingers, but I'm most comfortable with 3 on your touchpad, and you push up. So just 3 fingers up, it will show you everything that's open on your computer. If you're working in something, especially now that everything is web-based and there's like a new pop-up window, you can see here, like Google Meet has this little screen that pops up to show that I'm sharing. Those windows can get buried behind one another. So this is just a quick, easy way to say, oh, yep, this is the one I want. You can click on it and it brings that window to the front. On the opposite hand, if you take 3 fingers and swipe down, it shows your desktop. So let's say something happens on your computer and you're like, oh my goodness, I do not want that on my smart board. Sometimes, when you're in the heat of that moment, it's hard to get everything off your screen really quickly. You can just take 3 fingers and swipe down, and it literally closes everything. This will not turn off the sound. Recently, nothing horrible. We just had an ad show up in a YouTube video, and the teacher was like, I really just don't want my kids seeing like this YouTube ad. If the teacher were to swipe down, it would have turned the video off, but the students would have still been able to hear the sound. So just keep that in mind. It's not foolproof, but it is pretty cool. And then the last one, swiping left to right. So if I just rest 3 fingers and I swipe left and right, you get this little box that shows all of the windows that are open. And I'm just you can probably barely see my hand moving on the screen there. Let's say I want to go to this progress book screen. Whatever one you stop on is the screen that it will bring up. So if I want to go back to settings, I just kind of go that way. So those are your gestures. 3 up is everything open, 3 down is close everything, and left to right is switching between the different things that are open. Okay, last 2 things I want to show you, because I know I can't believe it's almost been a half hour already. I want to show you how to change some of your defaults. So I'm just going to come down here because this is how I'm most comfortable. And I'm just going to search for default, and you should see default apps as one of your choices. We do a lot of work with PDFs, and it makes me crazy sometimes when I open PDFs and they're opening in Chrome or they're opening in Edge, and I really want them to open in Adobe. So you can come in here, and I believe all of your computers should be set for your web browser, your default browser, to be Chrome. When you click on an email link, so if you're on a website and so you go to the Contact Us page and it takes you to an email link, it will probably try to open up the native Windows 10 Mail app, which we don't use. We're a Google school. We just use the Gmail website. You can actually click on this here, and you can change it to Google Chrome. So the next time you click on an email link that opens up the window where you would start typing a message, now it's going to open in Chrome instead of that Windows 10 app. You can also do this for file types. So if we scroll down, these are the most common ones that they let you pick. But you can use this choose default apps by file type. Don't be overwhelmed. There are a million file types that are about to load on your screen. I would just scroll through as you need this. So PDF is probably the most common one that people change. So you can see over here, these are the different file extensions. I could not even tell you what all of these do. I would just grab this little bar here and get down to the section where it starts with PDF. We're getting close. There it is, PDF. So my PDFs on this laptop are set to open in Microsoft Edge. That would make me crazy. So if you click on it, it shows you other apps that you have installed that are compatible with whichever file type. So for in this case, it would be PDFs. This is actually a really good example. I have not installed Adobe Reader on this computer yet. So if you get into a situation where you need a new app on your computer, just submit a ticket for me and I will get it pushed out. 90% of our apps that we use in the district, I can push to your computer without even visiting your classroom. So it's real easy for me to send those things your way. So before I change this one, I would just ask for Adobe to be added to this laptop. And then once it's installed, I'd come back in and select Adobe as my choice. And then moving forward, anytime you open a PDF, it will automatically open in Adobe so you can have those extra like printing choices and editing things that are available in Adobe that you can't do in Chrome or even in Edge. So feel free to change your defaults. And if you want help with that, I'd be more than happy to come help you. And if you need software, please let me know. We like to start these out as kind of the bare minimum to keep your computers running as fast as possible. And then as you need things, we're happy to add them along the way. All right, the last thing I want to show you how to do is to update your computer. So I'm in our settings. You can kind of just barely tell this is the settings window. If you click this arrow here, you can go back, and I'm going to actually keep going back and back till I get to the home page here. Whether you like to do it that way or you come in here and you click the settings options, I would check your computer for an update, especially if you're on today because Microsoft just released an update last week. Click this updates and security, and it's going to ask you if I don't think it's going to let you update to Windows 11. So we're not going to do that, but I'll send an email. That's a whole nother thing for another time. But you can come down here and check for updates, and it will see if your computer is ready for the newest update. And if it is, it will start downloading. And then when it's ready, you'll see it. It'll click here and it'll say, restart your computer now or restart it later. So here it found one little update, looks like a security patch that it will put in place to keep your computer protected. So I know that was quick, and I know there was a lot in that one section. So if you ever want to come back and kind of revisit these things, of course, we'll have the recording available for this session. The other place would be in your staff resources. We have our technology resources page. And if you come over here to devices and equipment, I have a whole page on Windows 10. So all of those keyboard shortcuts and even some more that I was not able to touch on today, if you go through here, it will show you unzipping files. Here's the different gestures, and then all the different keyboard shortcuts that are here. There's also one for your Chromebooks. So I mentioned some of these tools will work on both platforms. You could also look up those Chromebook keyboard shortcuts as well. All right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. What questions do you all have for me? I know we are officially 1 minute over, so if you have to go, I am not offended by any means.
Thanks, Chelsea.
You're welcome.
That was a lot in 30 minutes, but it was really well paced. And again, the recording will be available on demand, and I know Chelsea's willing to work with anybody who wants some extra help.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Chelsea, I have a question for you, quick. Sometimes when I open PDFs, or even like that test you downloaded for me in the zip file, like above my bar, the task bar at the bottom, I'll get all these PDF, and it's like, I can't figure out how to get rid of them. Like
Yeah.
sometimes.
Can
Like on this
you-
computer, I see that I can just hit there's like an X over in this corner, but sometimes on my Chromebook or on my laptop at home, like if you just hit the arrow that shows up, it doesn't give you the option to delete them when I'm done with them. What do I do with them then?
Let's set up a time for me to come look at this with you, because I think I'm not 100% sure that I'm understanding what's popping up, and I don't know the best way to attack that. But let me know when I can stop by, and we'll kind of take a look at that
Okay.
together.
All right.
Okay. Well, thank you. It's amazing how much we can fit in 30 minutes. Next week, we got Ms. Van Doren going to share about PBIS and interventions. And that really is for everybody, all grades, because the class management techniques they use are helpful no matter what building you're in. Chelsea, thank you very much. And I'll have this up on our professional learning session site tomorrow sometime. Thank you all.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.